Hallelujah, somebody. I want to thank the Lord for giving us another wonderful day that He has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. This morning I come with a wonderful topic: why we do not manifest God's glory and His power. So today we'll be looking at the book of Ephesians chapter 5 verse 19, and I read: Speak to one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. The important part I want us to look at is singing and making melody in your heart to the Lord. Beloved, for we to manifest God's power and His presence in this dispensation, we must cultivate the habit of singing and making melody in our heart to the Lord, because songs of worship to our Maker and songs of adoration invite God's presence. So if you are regular in making or consistent in making melody in your heart, songs of worship and adoration in your heart to the Lord, is simply put, you are inviting God's presence and His power into your life. And you can be overwhelmed by God's power, and you can be overwhelmed by God's presence as you move along. Become the carrier of God's presence and the carrier of God's power as you go. The Bible says in the book of 2 Chronicles chapter 7 from verse 1 and 2, it says, when the Lord came down, the priests could not perform their duty. It then means it's not their will that is enforced, but the will of God is what is enforced. The Bible also makes us to understand in the book of 2 Kings chapter 3 from verse 14 to 15. Elisha said, if not because of the presence of Jehoshaphat, I would have not listened to you here. And he said they should get him a harpist. And as the harpist began to minister in hymns, the right sacrifice was laid at his altar, and he began to prophesy. The hand of the Lord came upon him. And that means if you lay the right sacrifice at the altar, the presence of God will follow you. The power of God will be made manifest around you. So we can manifest God's power, we can manifest His presence if we lay the worship, if we lay songs of adoration at the altar of our hearts. The Bible says that our body is the temple of the living God, according to what is written in the book of 1 Corinthians 6 verse 19. Paul and Silas also carries the presence of the Lord and His power when they began to sing songs of adoration and of Him when they were in prison. The Bible says, and the prison gate broke open because they laid the right sacrifice at the altar of the Lord. So we can manifest His presence if we are consistent in laying at the altar of our heart worship to the Lord, adoration to the Lord, and the Lord will begin to manifest His presence in our life, and we begin to be carrier of God's power in our life. Act of the Apostles chapter 5 verse 15, the Bible says they brought the sick and the lame, the cripple, all manner of sickness, and they lay it along the way, so that when Peter passes, his shadow could heal them. Are you sure it's actually the shadow of Peter? But what is healing them is the presence of the Lord in the life of Peter. And because he is consistent in laying the right sacrifice at his heart, at the altar of his heart, the presence of God comes and overwhelms him. His shadow began to heal, not his will any longer, not the will of his shadow, but the shadow of the Lord. The will that has superseded, has overwhelmed the shadow of Peter, is what is healing the people. And the people are healed. Beloved, our shadow can heal people in this dispensation if we cultivate the habit of laying the right sacrifice at the altar, and our shadow no longer speak, but the shadow of the Lord that overwhelm our shadow will begin to heal men, will begin to heal cripple, will begin to raise the dead. That is what we are talking about. Our shadow can do that if we lay the right sacrifice at the altar. Beloved, I have come this morning with these words that we can manifest God's power and His presence in this dispensation. God bless you.